Hi, everybody. My name is Kristen Kotsko, and I am the director of the Clinical Coordinating Department at Energy Oncology in Pittsburgh. My group's answering clinical questions for the FORTE study, but I also have another hat. I work with Cheryl Liao, Dr. Shellen, and Dr. Duker on the FORTE study. I work with them. We're kind of the FORTE team at Ops, if you will. So those are my two hats, and we are so happy you all are here today to hear a little bit about FORTE. We know a lot of people aren't able to travel to the energy meetings like we used to be able to, so we decided to do this virtual session to kind of talk a little bit more nuts and bolts about the trial and go over some of the information we talked about at the energy meeting as well. There's 75 people online right now for this, which is wonderful. So I'm going to ask that if you have questions, please type them in the chat. We have a couple Q&As built into our agenda, so we will get to all of your questions, I promise, but please type them in the chat. I think everybody is muted, by the way, Cheryl set this up, but if you aren't muted, please be sure to stay muted so you're not distracting when the speakers are presenting. We have a full agenda today. Thank you to our speakers for taking the time to do this with us today. It's wonderful that you're here. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the virtual microphone over to Dr. Shellen, who is the National Protocol Chair PI, but he's also a local PI, so he brings both perspectives to the study. So I'm giving you the microphone, Rocky.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Great. First of all, let me say that it's an honor to address you, the coordinators. You are the heart and soul of this trial, and this trial would not happen without you. And I just want you to make sure you know every day that you are really what is making this happen, and it is happening. Let me see if I can advance my slide. First of all, I thought you might know that the Wordle for July 24th was FORTE. Okay. This is the study leadership kind of nationally, if you will. Myself, Jeff Duker, who is also on the faculty at the University of Pittsburgh. He's the co-chair. Doug Corley, who is at Kaiser in Northern California, is the chief scientific officer, and Hannah Bandos is our statistician. Let's talk a little bit about recruitment. That's where we're at and the core of what we're doing. 9,500 is our goal. That's a very ambitious goal. The NCI has set certain benchmarks for us. The first one was 950 by September 30th, 2023. That was a minimum benchmark goal. We recruited as of that date 941. So we were pretty damn good, 99+%. However, these metrics increase, and beginning in October 1 for the next year to September 30th, our recruitment total was supposed to increase to close to 120 per month. How are we doing? So this is as of last week, that's July 30th, 2024, we had 1787. I looked just, a few hours ago, and we were up to 1813, I think it was. So another 26 since last week, which is terrific. But how are we doing in the global big picture? So here is some charts that I'd like to share with you. This shows you the recruits per month and the number of sites that recruited in that month. So you can see in November of 2023, FORTE recruited 59 people that month and 10 sites contributed. If you look over November, December, January, going into 2024, you see we were around 60. December holiday month, things dropped, 70 in January. And again, though, we were about 11 sites recruiting. Now in February of 2024, we started to ramp things up. And you can see now in June, we've been hitting over 100 per month, as high as 116 in May. But notice how we've accomplished that, in part because we have more sites recruiting, up now in the 20s. In May, we had 26 sites that contributed a patient to the trial. If you look at our total number of accruing sites since between March and the end of June, we added 10 new sites. So we are adding new sites, and that's what is of course contributing to our increased numbers. Now, what are the focus that we have in terms of recruitment? Well, we want more sites, and we do that by engaging sites through NRG, through GI, because I'm a GI doctor, and of course we have a number of GI doctors affiliated with the trial, and we get the word out that way. We also have made a lot of effort to recruit VAs, and we have over 70 patients recruited via the VA system, which is a lot. Not many NRG trials have ever gotten a number like that, and that is, again, an ongoing focus. I'm not going to go too much into the SuperSite initiative. This was something new where we're trying to get sites to recruit big numbers. We've had some initial proposals. They're undergoing review, and we'll see how that's going to play out. Now, in addition to getting more sites, we also want to get more enrollment per site. And I think there's three mechanisms for doing that. One is incentives. When we started the trial, the NCI wasn't very receptive to the notion of giving people any money to offset their inconvenience. Interestingly, the CIRB and the IRB are perfectly comfortable with this. Anyhow, many sites have instituted incentives, can range from $40 to $100. We find that it greatly increases recruitment because it gives something back, and we are inconveniencing people. And so it does come out of the site's bottom line. So it costs you some money. But think about it. For a recruitment, the reimbursement is at least $1,500 and sometimes even more than that, up to $2,000. And I'd gladly spend $40 to make $2,000. So if your site is not using incentives, it's something to think about. I'm going to talk a little bit about remote consent and blood draw. That is something that is new, and we're trying to facilitate it to bring it out to sites throughout the FORTE system. And we're also trying to do things to improve information technology to help you better identify eligible participants. So let's talk a little bit about remote consent and blood draw. This is kind of something that evolved from the pandemic. And the notion here is we don't really need to bring people into our center to recruit them into this trial. One can do this via DocuSign, Zoom. RedCap is particularly user-friendly in this way because the patient can sign the consent, and a copy automatically comes back to them, and it's signed. Now, again, different institutions have different policies on this, and you have to work through your own institution to make sure you can do it. But the point is the CIRB is very receptive to this. I give the example of my own site, the University of Pittsburgh. We estimate we have at least 100 enrollees who we don't think would have enrolled in the trial if we hadn't offered this remote consent, blood draw, and incentive because they did not want to travel into the city of Pittsburgh to become a part of the study. In terms of the remote blood draw, this is really cool, and it's kind of cutting edge. And basically, there are national companies out there that will send phlebotomists to people's home. And this will not affect your budget in the sense that some of the money that you get reimbursed for doing the blood draw will go to the remote blood draw. But then again, it's not a net loss for you. And again, it's getting more people involved in the trial. We are in the process of negotiating with a national provider such that each site would not have to set up their own system. In fact, we would give them all the elements of how to do this, and therefore they don't have to negotiate contracts and all of that. So that's very exciting. I put together a list with the help of my coordinators what are the mechanics of doing remote blood draw? Basically, you schedule a date with the participant. You enter this date into an online portal, and then you send the patient the Strec tube with the label. We also put in a stool kit because we're giving them a stool kit so they can do that portion of the trial. And we also put in the payment card, although the payment card is not activated until they do their part and return, get the blood drawn and return questionnaires and things like that. The phlebotomist contacts the participant, and the phlebotomist goes and arranges where to draw that. It might be in the patient's home, could be at the patient's place of work, or it could be anywhere, as long as the patient is comfortable with it. And the phlebotomist mails the specimen to the biobank, so that's not on the patient's responsibility list. And then when that is completed, we notify the participant that their payment card has been activated, and we encourage them to comply with other aspects of the protocol. So this is a system that, if you want to ramp up your recruitment, and you can do this with remote blood draw and remote consent, it takes away a lot of inconvenience. It's something to strongly consider. In terms of information technology, I have spoken to you all in the past about that there's a lot of colonoscopies, and the ones that we're looking for are the ones that have 1 or 2 non-advanced adenomas with no prior adenomas. We developed what's called a natural language processing system through this company, Pieces. However, it really has failed. Why has it failed? Because we find that institutions don't want to ship data, meaning colonoscopy reports and pathology reports, outside their system, even if it's de-identified. So we've been thinking of new ways to work around this, and we have this very interesting project ongoing with UCLA. And what UCLA has a natural language processing system, and the notion is they would kind of give it to your institution, and we would provide some funding to fund some IT people at your institution, and UCLA would help them. And then you could run your own reports on your own system behind your own firewall, and then we have no problem about all this privacy and institutions being uncomfortable with data leaving their place. It stays at your place. So that's something, again, is an ongoing effort. We're just validating the UCLA system, and we have some sites that we think might be willing to take this on as a pilot. If you have other means, there is this IT initiative. We'll provide some funds for your IT people to help you define eligibles. But we want to be sure this is a system that's going to work and is going to adequately identify people so that you can spend your time not so much searching for eligibles, but screening eligibles and see if they're willing to participate in the trial. And with that, I will stop sharing and close my presentation.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Laura Amsden, and I am a project manager here in Kaiser Permanente, Northern California at the FORTE study site. And I've been tasked or asked to present about our approach to training new staff on recruitment and data entry. There we go. Okay, so I'll start by talking a little bit about our schedule and the steps that we take to onboard new staff. So we first onboard to KPNC in general, if it's an outside person that's come in and it's not a current Kaiser Permanente employee. And then we need to onboard to the clinical trials systems, make sure trainings and certifications are all up to date. We make sure that the new person has access to all of the clinical trials applications after their training and certifications are done, RAVE, the CSTU system, open. And then, of course, they have applications to all of our have access to all of our specific applications here at Kaiser, which here we use REDCap. We have an access database. We have a specific project email box, and also that the person has access to Health Connect and knows how to use Health Connect, which is our electronic medical record system. We then start by using an overall, doing an overall FORTE protocol training with the protocol that has been released nationally. And then everyone on our team goes through cohort ascertainment training, because everyone on our team does cohort ascertainment. And what I mean by that is we all contribute to screening people that are potentially eligible for the study and making sure that that they are potentially eligible. So we pull into our tracking database using an electronic algorithm people that we think are eligible. And then we review their colonoscopy report and their pathology report to determine if we can make a call to them and see if they're interested in the study. And then we move specifically to recruitment, data entry training, anything that that person is going to be specifically working on. So this is a visual approach to what I was just talking about. We use written materials to read or to do some training one-on-one or virtually, have the person listen to the trainer and then watch what the trainer does, and then actually do the work independently and together with the trainer, but then independently submit the work back to the trainer, and then the trainer reviews. And then that's an iterative approach until the trainee and the trainer feel that the trainee is ready to do the work independently. We also use workflows and diagrams. We use visual figures to teach new staff our processes and workflows, just as another means of another method of teaching, right? So this is our cohort ascertainment workflow. And then this is an example of our recruitment workflow. Okay, so how do we train specifically on recruitment? So we have some in-house training materials that we've developed. One of them is a document on specifically the workflows and the specific steps on anything related to anything that we do in the study center. It's very detailed, and it's about 48 pages long. We have screenshots of our different tracking systems that we have here, or different platforms, Access and REDCap, to help the staff know exactly what to do when they're doing the work. We use REDCap to house the electronic consent form and the HIPAA, which the participant signs electronically and which Dr. Schoen mentioned. We have an access tracking database, and we use it to track cohort ascertainment, recruitment, and data collection. And it's important that new staff know how to use all of these internal platforms. We then do role plays with the trainee, and we work with a variety of our recruiters so that the trainee can see different styles. And then we move to using a test instance of REDCap and Access, where the trainee can conduct all parts of the recruitment and the consent process from beginning to end. We load test subjects into these instances, and the trainee then can be the recruiter and the participant and work on both sides. And this is really a really important part of the training system, that the trainee has the ability to work in the system, work through every single step that they're going to need to do during the recruitment process. During our workflow for recruitment is we have REDCap up, we have Access up, we have scripts up. So that person needs to know how to work between and within these different platforms. And again, it's important that they do work with a variety of different recruiters so they can see their different styles and how they approach participants. We purposely add in specific scenarios that can be challenging. So for example, some subjects are interested in only a 10-year colonoscopy. They don't want to do a 5-year colonoscopy. So what are our specific talking points around that, and how do the different recruiters deal with those different types of situations? And then also we have our trainees sit on live consent calls with 2 to 3 different recruiters so they can hear some of the different scenarios that come up and how the recruiters respond to those scenarios. And it's an iterative process, so they're assigned test subjects and they do mock calls a variety of times, and it's once the trainer and the trainee feel confident that the trainee can do the work independently that they are then given the okay to go ahead and recruit independently. So example 2 on how we train with RAVE and open training. So this is a similar slide to what I showed earlier, but I wanted to show it again to reiterate how we follow it for RAVE and open training. And we do use printed materials and workflows, but usually that's been we've already done that by the time someone gets to RAVE and open training. But working through cases together is important. The trainee will watch the trainer do some examples in RAVE and in open, and then they'll do them independently, and then the trainer reviews those cases. The trainee is actively doing the work, learning as they do the work, and we use mistakes as teaching points, mistakes and errors as teaching points. And again, we can refer back to our written training materials, and those training materials have screenshots so that if they're in open and they don't know what's going on in open, they can always refer back to our training materials with the screenshots so they know exactly where they are and what they're doing. Okay. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about a feature that we use to provide trainees, new people with training material, but also to provide support for our existing staff. We really try to embrace the idea of continuous learning because there's always something new that comes up in the study. So our team shares specific Teams chats and Teams groups. And one of them is our team chat called Recruitment Business. And the purpose is to provide support and answer questions in real time. So a recruiter is on a phone call and cannot answer a question. They will oftentimes go to the stream and post the question. And really, more often than not, within 5 minutes or so, one of our team members has answered their question or at least tried to answer their question. Also, if a recruiter has a challenging phone call or there's been a super successful phone call, they will often post here and share their experience and get feedback and support. But really, one of the most important aspects of this feature is live immediate questions can be answered and providing feedback and support and encouragement. And if you have any questions, here is my email. Also, Rachel Frankel I provided her email here. She is open to helping with any questions that you might have. And wanted just a quick thanks to Rachel and Heather for helping with the development of these slides, and also for our entire study team here, who show just tremendous dedication to all things Forte, and especially to Doug Corley, our esteemed PI here. So that's it.
Thank you, Laura. That was wonderful. Next up, we have Jody from Metro Minnesota. She is going to talk to us about communication with patients.
All right, so I am Jody Gear and I work with MCORC, and today we're going to talk about communication with patients who are eligible for the study. So just a little background. MCORC doesn't work within the oncology clinics, so we're not in the GI clinics, and I know that's different for some people. A lot of the places are working within the GI clinics. We are not, so it's a little bit different for me. I'm the only coordinator working on this study, and I'm currently working with 2 sites, so everything is done remotely. So just kind of getting things started, you need to get your GI department on board. You need to get permission to contact their patients. If you're in the GI clinic, you can set up a meeting with the department to discuss the study and get their permission. For me, it was setting up meeting virtually within the departments to get their permission, and setting up, maybe putting brochures in the office. After getting permission, I send a list to the pathology department. It's just basic eligibility criteria. Once I get that back, I do a more detailed screening from that pathology list. So once patients are determined eligible, I send them out a letter. So again, this can be different for everybody. If you're in the clinic, you can just do it in person, or you can use email, but I have to do a letter. So next, creating your letter, your email, or how you're going to approach these patients. There is a letter on CTSU that's already prepared for you that you can use. And then determine how you're going to consent these patients. I have to do mine electronically again because I am not within the clinic. But if you're in the clinic, you can always just do the paper version. Some patients prefer to sign a paper version, so if they don't want to do electronically, you can just mail them out a paper version that they would just mail back in. So by sending out the letters prior to contacting these patients, they are more aware of what I'm calling about, so they know I'm not just some scammer calling. So basically what I just say is, hey, I'm just calling to follow up on a letter that we sent out to you about a colonoscopy study, and they're usually like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I have a 3 contact rule. So the first contact is we send out the letter, I wait a little while, I make a phone call. If they don't answer, I leave a message with my direct phone number to call back. They don't want to be calling the number and being transferred all around. And then if they don't call me back, I call again and I leave one more message and with my direct phone number, and just say, if you're interested, call me back. And then I remove them from my list and don't bother them anymore. So effective communication skills. So it's very important how you talk to patients. Be mindful of yourself. Everybody has a bad day, and that can really affect your emotional state and how you talk to people. So just be aware of how you're feeling that day and don't bring that out in your own tone. So when you talk to patients, be upbeat and friendly, like you're talking to a friend, not somebody above their head or, from a clinic or from somewhere weird. And smile when you're on the phone. If you smile, it changes the tone of your voice. So it's important to smile in person as well as on the phone. And then patients have a bad day. You never know, their boss could have just yelled at them 15 minutes ago and now they're very upset. So are they happy? Are they annoyed? Are they tired? So kind of match the mood. So if they're happy and playful, be happy and playful with them. If they seem like you just woke them up, be a little more quiet with them and just kind of match what you're feeling with it. And again, watch your tone with them. And then be clear and concise. Get to the point. People are busy, or they don't want to be bothered. So why you're calling and what it's all about. And then another thing is just to avoid using words and that complex words and medical jargon. So when people hear precancerous polyps, they kind of panic a little bit because they hear the word cancer and they think that they might have cancer now. So be mindful of that and just say, you can say adenomous tumor or polyps or the kind of polyps you had on your colonoscopy. Be an active listener. Let them ask you questions, voice their concerns, acknowledge what they're saying, repeat back and understand what they're saying. So be empathetic, try to understand their point of view. I've had people, this is one example. I really don't want to risk waiting. I just found out my best friend's brother just died of colon cancer and he had no idea. So, be empathetic and say, wow, that, I understand and, thanks for your time. be patient, take your time explaining what the study is trying to answer and what it involves. If you talk really fast, they're like, what? I don't really hear what you just said, and they will just say no. So take your time, like you're talking to a friend. You wouldn't babble on really fast to your friends. Just be relaxed with it. And then speak with confidence. Convey your message clearly. That will make them more likely to listen. So, if you sound like you know what you're talking about, they're going to listen to you. And then be prepared for your conversation. I do have a script that I created just for training purposes, but make a script for yourself or something, if you were not to be there, somebody could use. But it's just good to write it down and know exactly what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And then a couple of helpful hints, just be prepared. One thing I always get, people that sometimes don't know when their next colonoscopy was supposed to be. So by you knowing, it gives them a little more confidence that you are really who you say you are, because you can say, no, it looks like they said in 5 years. And know why it's okay for them to participate, that they're low risk, they met the eligibility criteria so that they're considered low risk, and their GI provider gets permission for their patients that are considered low risk to participate in the study. Then there's a list of common questions and answers on CTSU that I would advise new coordinators to look at. It's got, you hear the same questions over and over, but take a look at that and know how to answer them instead of hemming and hawing and trying to answer it the best you can. You know exactly what you're going to say. And then be confident and excited to offer them the opportunity. Use the terms like opportunity, participate, selected. People like to be selected and asked to participate in things. It makes them feel good. And then don't pressure them. Some patients will have a hard time saying no when they really want to say no, but they want to make you happy. So don't pressure them into doing something that they don't want to. Let them think about it, and they're more apt to email you back and say no than join saying yes just to make you happy, and then they don't participate in one aspect of the study whatsoever. So give them the time they need. Let them think about it. So that is all I have. Is there any questions?
Apologies, I'm not real quick on getting myself off mute. Or trying. So right now we're going to have some time for Q&A. So if you have a question that's too long to type in the chat, please feel free to raise your hand, and then I'll just tell you to take yourself off mute. That way everybody's not talking at once. But one of the questions that's come into the chat is from Heather, and she says, the talking points document we have is from March 2023. I'm wondering if it is possible to review and update this document based on experiences in the past year. Great idea. We would need to find out information from you all to update the document. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to send out a survey in the next week or two, asking you some questions that will help us update that document. So please watch for the survey to come in your email. I really encourage you to take the time to complete the survey, because your feedback is what's going to help us update this document. And then we can revise that talking points document to make it a little bit more current. We have several VAs in the chat that are reaching out to help each other with a couple of VA related issues. Miriam from UCLA said how the remote blood draw is very inviting to patients and will certainly help with recruitment. We agree 100%, Miriam, which is why we've been working through it. And just as an FYI, they have at least 10 VA sites with the trial open, which is huge, because I don't think maybe we had 4 or 5 the beginning of the year. So we really appreciate the VA opening the sites and getting this moving. Let me see, someone else just sent me a message. So Heather said, regarding the remote blood draws, is the next step to wait and see if the main site can establish a national contract? Okay, I can answer that. Amid Energy, we are working with a company to provide remote blood draws to the sites. The way it's going to work, and we've already identified the company, we're just negotiating a few little pieces with them, and then we'll get the contract signed and start to roll it out to you. Laura, I can't tell you which company quite. I don't want to say who it is quite yet. So what'll happen is you're gonna get some sort of communication from us. It might be something in Forte Fridays, which is the email that you all get that has lots of information, Forte specific. You need to keep looking at that because the blood draw, the remote blood draw information, it potentially is going to roll out in that document. There will probably be a separate broadcast that'll come out that'll have the remote blood draw information as well. We still need to work on a few of the details on the operations end as far as how we're going to collect which patient's blood was drawn remotely versus who was drawn centrally, just for some of the financial parts. Rocky, if I have a question for you from Miriam at UCLA. She says, how do you deal with an on-study subject that is not happy with the 10-year randomization arm? Do you have any thoughts? Offer to be removed from study or we can follow them. Has anybody else had this situation come up that they want to share how they handled it? You can take yourself off mute if you'd like.
I actually have had that situation. And
Yeah.
I handled it by just talking to the patient and telling them that if they have any concerns, if there's bleeding or, just any concerns prior to that 10-year colonoscopy, that they can go to their doctor. That doesn't mean that they can't, get another colonoscopy if the doctor believes that they should. And that usually helps them.
And that's something to mention as well when you're talking to the patients when you're consenting them. If, remind them if they medically need to have a colonoscopy done because they're having symptoms or their doctor feels it's in their best interest, we aren't going to stop them from having one done before year 10. That's, we want to do what's in the best interest of the patient.
I do. I've run into that too before here. And what I have voiced to the patient, and I say, we'll focus on your colonoscopy from 10 years for the purpose of this study, but anything that your doctor is recommending takes precedence over all of that. And if you do end up needing to get a colonoscopy for whatever reason, in addition, before the 10 years, then please feel free to reach out to me. We can take you off of the study. We can document additional colonoscopies, or we can talk with your physician. And typically when you cover the bases like that, it just gives the patient a reason to relax a little about it.
Right. And one thing I do want to say is when you're consenting the patient, you really want to stress to them. It's 5 and 10 versus 10. They need to be comfortable with being randomized to either arm. It's somebody asked me, not for this study, for another study that was a randomized trial. Well, can't they just pick the arm? No, they can't. It's a randomized study. They have to be okay with getting either arm. So when you're talking to patients about Forte and you're potentially going to consent them, make sure they're okay with that idea. Miriam, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Hi, thank you for all your answers, everybody. Clearly, obviously, I go through all of this information while pre-screening the patients, right? And telling them that please, you must follow your GI's recommendations for any diagnostics, reasoning. I explain what that means, that if you're not feeling well and you have blood and you're whatever, and the GI says tomorrow I need you to go to the colonoscopy, I always tell them please follow that, that the study is secondary. However, and I continue and I say that if you're not willing to stick with a 10-year randomization after you've been randomized, then it's not a good study for you to be involved in. But this situation is after the person has enrolled, understanding all of this during pre-screening, the person has been enrolled, then he has been randomized to 10 years. So the conversation I had with him, and please let me know if that's okay or not, I said that it's up to you if you want to be removed from the study. However, if you are enrolled right now, we do notate every year if there are any changes. So my question to you is, should we encourage him to stay, or should we just say, okay, we need to pull you out of the study?
Could I comment on
Yes,
that? Yes, I think Elizabeth made this point, and these are very, very good questions. Look, we all know, and we accounted for in our statistics, that there would be people getting early colonoscopy for symptomatic reasons, all kinds of reasons. And the preference is that they remain within the study. And, if someone says, well, I know I'm not going to wait 10 years, and even though we did our due diligence, I mean, I think the way Jennifer put it is say, well, if you want to remove yourself from the study, you can, but it's our preference that you remain in the study. We'll follow you. And if you end up needing or getting an early colonoscopy, that doesn't mean that you're no longer part of the trial. That is the default. The default is to keep people in. And of course, hopefully they adhere to the randomization. And obviously, if clinical circumstances supersede that, be it what it is.
Great. That's exactly what we talked about and discussed. And so he will stay in the study. But I just wanted to make sure moving forward. Okay. Thank you.
Jody, you have your hand up too. Did you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I couldn't tell if my hand was up or not. I don't know. just going back to the point of the study is what I share with patients. This is why we're doing the study. They want to listen to their GI provider, but this is how schedules are made, is by doing clinical trials. And this is what we're trying to accomplish right now is, determine, do we need to do that 5-year colonoscopy or not? And you're helping us by doing that. With this study, it may change to 10 years. So just kind of reminding them, this is what the study's kind of all about. The schedule, it could be 10 years and you would be doing 10 years, but reminding them that's what we're trying to figure out. Do you really need to have that 5-year colonoscopy and go through all of that prep and all of the time and all of the everything else? You're considered low risk, that they feel that it's okay for you to wait 10 years. Your GI provider has given permission, but this is the purpose of the study, is to find out, and just kind of remind them that's what the study is about.
Thank you. Any other questions during this Q&A time? If you have any questions and you want to take yourself off mute, just raise your hand or type it in the chat. So Sarah's asking, if we are a site that is just starting FORTE, how can we get access to the FORTE Friday newsletter you mentioned? Cheryl, this is all you.
Thank you so much for asking. I will have a QR code at the end of the presentation in my slides where we will address this exact question.
Okay, we are going to move on with our next presenters. We're going to have Isabella Frack, who a lot of you probably know. She's a FORTE data manager, and Jennifer Muehlmans from Zablocki VA talk about follow-ups. So Jenny and Isabella.
My name is Isabella Frack. As Kristen said, I am the data manager for CCO5. I am going to talk about data collection during follow-up phase of the study, as well as forms and folders where we collect this data. Follow-up period is calculated from the date of randomization. Participant follow-up is every 12 months, and this is listed in the protocol. It is table 1, and this is shown on this slide number 2. Follow-up will be due a year from randomization. Follow-up expectancy is dynamic, and it's based on last submitted follow-up form, which is 12 months from the date of contact on the last follow-up form in RAVE. And as an example, if the participant was randomized in January 2024, follow-up 1 will be expected in January 2025. However, if this follow-up 1 will be entered in February 2024, then resets all dates, and next follow-up will be expected in RAVE in February 2025. So this will be already follow-up number 2, numbered in RAVE. Site staff should attempt to contact participants annually from randomization to obtain disease and vital status, unscheduled colonoscopies information, diagnosis of a new colorectal cancer or other malignancy, and additional health information. If a participant cannot be contacted, the participant's electronic medical records may be used to obtain the annual disease and vital status information. And this is listed in the protocol as well, and it's the table 1, footnote E. It's on the slide number 2. Follow-up folders are numbered in RAVE, which does not correspond to the year of follow-up period. This is for the internal purposes. Forms in RAVE are overdue at 30 days from due date. Source of survivor information is collected in RAVE on the follow-up form. Sites can submit more follow-up folders than expected per protocol. Protocol 5-year and 10-year colonoscopies are not to be reported in the follow-up folder, but in the appropriate folder that is labeled 5-year colonoscopy or 10-year colonoscopy. And here's the screenshot of those, how those are labeled in RAVE. We amended recently a question on the follow-up form to clarify what colonoscopy information is collected in the follow-up folder. And it's a question on this slide, and the section that was added is in red. And the question reads, whether any colonoscopies since the last follow-up that have not been previously reported or do not qualify as the protocol scheduled 5-year and or 10-year colonoscopy. Data from unscheduled colonoscopies that are not reported in the follow-up folder will be reported via add event, and this is on the main subject page in RAVE. During follow-up phase, the following are collected: 24-month stool and 24-month stool questionnaire, 48-month stool and 48-month stool questionnaire, 5-year colonoscopy and 10-year colonoscopy. And that will be all for me, and you can contact me directly, send me email, or you can send email to support, which is support@energyoncology.org.
Okay. All right, so I am Jenny Melmans out of the Milwaukee-Zablocki VA, and I was asked to present on how we contact our participants for follow-up. So annually from the date of randomization is when we do the follow-up. Prior to contacting the participant, I print out the worksheet for follow-up, and that is down here. That's the first page and the second page. I like to have that available prior to calling the patient, so I know what questions to ask. And then we also use that as our source documentation. I usually contact the participant via their preferred method of contact. We usually ask that upon enrollment. And I haven't had any difficulty contacting patients. Usually they're pretty welcoming and ready to answer any questions I have. So when I call, I introduce myself, I reacquaint them to the study and their enrollment in FORTE. I have them answer the questions on the worksheet for follow-up based on their date of last contact, usually that enrollment date. And then, if applicable, if I have to, so the pages that I use are on page 33 to 35 of the protocol form set. If any participant answers yes to some of the questions, additional forms are required. Those forms are on page 36 to 45 of the protocol form set. So if we would need to do additional forms, I haven't had to yet, but those would, or I would find those. And as far as contacting participants, I usually make 3 attempts to contact them. And if they don't respond after 3 attempts, I may reach out to a family or make 1 call to a family or friend contact that they have listed. And then if no If no contact is made, then I would use a recent medical record from their electronic medical record to obtain some vital information.
I tried to make it a little bit FORTE specific, but really this can be applied to any study that uses RAVE for data collection. But the data quality portal, you can get through to it through CTSU. It's not part of RAVE and it's not part of the protocol section. It's actually its own budget. So there's 4 different sections in there. I'm only going to go over 3 of them. The reports is more of like a quality manager type of thing to just see how compliant your site is and things of that nature. Next slide, whoever's got control. Thank you. The form status section, so you can see right here, you'll click on the data management tab and you'll go down to form status. This is what shows you really all of the forms pertaining to your site. You're still not seeing the slides?
It seems like some of us are and some aren't. I can see them.
Okay. And so here you can sort it through a bunch of different filters to see what you have done, what you have coming up, what you have overdue, things of that nature. Next slide. All right, so when you initially click on the form status, you have to actually put in which protocol you are looking for. I will give you the disclaimer for FORTE. You do have to type in the NRG part of it before you go to CC005. So if you're not finding it, that's probably why. You can make these forms up to 1 year. So I usually do them by the month, and I'll do it in the beginning of the month just to see what's coming up. But if you, like I said, this is not FORTE specific, so if you had other studies, you could do the same type of thing. They break them down into 3 different categories. So expected is what they plan on seeing from your site, what's going to be due, and they haven't received it yet. Received is pretty self-explanatory. These are forms that you have entered, whether you did it on time or late, it doesn't matter in the realm of the form status section. And then delinquent is what's considered overdue or hasn't been turned in yet by their expected due date. So next slide. So once you click all of that criteria, you narrowed it down, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. It's actually pretty neat. It ties right into RAVE. So that due date that you'll see in RAVE, baseline blood is due by this date, that actually corresponds with this as well. So you'll see I made them in green. They hook together like that. I usually sort them by expected date, so chronologically I know which is coming up first. So to do that, you just click on expected date. Another neat feature is you can export this to Excel, and then you can filter it down further in case you like to have a tracker that you can manipulate. You'll see that little button down there that is blue and it looks like a little grid. If you click that, it'll take you right to that patient in RAVE. So that's also a pretty cool feature. So if you have this up and you're like, oh, I thought I turned that in, you can click it right there and it'll take you right into the RAVE database. So next slide. Okay, so delinquent forms are less fun. delinquent forms can be your fault, patient's fault, nobody's fault, but they do count negatively towards your site. So to find what your delinquent forms are, you'll do the same type of process, data management, delinquent forms. These are the standards for what they consider to be delinquent. So technically you get a grace period for follow-up data. It's 30 days. So you might see in different protocols plus or minus 30 days. So that's basically around your due date around rave. You think of it as 30 days beyond that, then it will count negatively towards you for an audit or things of that nature. So you'll see they start counting them day one of it being overdue, but it really doesn't count against you until you hit that 31-day mark for follow-ups anyway. Baseline data, it's only 15 days, so you want to keep an eye on those. Next slide. Okay, so there's a lot of clicking to get to an actual what is overdue. So you're going to keep clicking on the total delinquencies. So where the little red box is, you'll see an underline under the numbers. So if you have 5 forms, you'll see 5 here. You just keep clicking that, and then it'll go by form, starts with site, goes by form, and then it'll go all the way down to study. And so you'll see that same type of grid down here in the bottom. It's a direct link into Rave. So same as like the other one, you just click that and it'll take you to the exact overdue form it is. So those, unfortunately, you don't get notified that they're overdue, but biweekly, if you signed up for the notifications in the I think it's called CRISP in CTSU for those notifications, but you can check here periodically. But if you're starting with the form status section, like I showed you first, then it won't become overdue because you'll know it's coming up. Next. All right, and then the last section is queries. So there's 2 different types of queries, but if you have a query on your study, it's going to show up right here. You can see for query resolution, they recommend that you get it done within 14 days or respond in some way to their query within 14 days, but you can see it's the same type of scale as far as audit findings go. Next. All right, so it's the same as the delinquencies. You click, 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 click until you get it all the way down to individuals and study specific. You'll see all the way in the right margin there, marking group. So those are the 2 different types of queries that you can have. So the data manager one, that would be like Isabella reaching out to you saying, hey, I have a question on this. And then the bottom one, cite from system, that's if you happen to miss a box when you're filling out the form, the system will automatically trigger a query for you to answer. So same type of thing, you click on the little grid and it'll take you right to whatever form it is, specifically where that query is. So next. And then if you have questions, CTSU has this really cool feature all the way to the right margin. You click on help, whatever page you're on, and it'll give you tutorials to really, you can see there, if you click those, they're detailed screenshots of where to go, how to do stuff. So anywhere in CTSU, you can click that button. But you also have your data managers there. And then if they update the data managers, you go directly to the NRG site. And they have them ranked by study, but that's it.
Thank you, Amber. Next up, Cheryl Leal is going to talk to us about the FORTE resource portal.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for hopping on. And I do want to take a moment to thank all of our presenters for these great presentations on how NRG CC005 is going, as we are all working hard on this 9,500 patient study. To start, I wanted to tell you guys, of course, if you aren't getting Forte Fridays, this is the most recent version that was sent out last Friday that had the sign-up registration for this webinar, along with some other information. The link there, energyoncology/home/news/weekly broadcasts, is how you get access to this. Basically, you need to be registered for the Energy Oncology mailing list, because that is how this broadcast is sent out. So it is on a monthly basis, usually the first or second week of the month, and we give you any updates that are happening with anything Forte related and any upcoming events or anything that you want to keep an eye out. So definitely when the remote blood draw mobile phlebotomy contract is ready, everybody will be notified through CTSU and also on here. If you want to go ahead and scan the QR code, I'll give you a couple more seconds to make sure you can sign up for Forte Fridays. The Forte Resource Portal is something we have been developing through Energy Oncology Operations, and the goal with this is to reorganize the information that's available on CTSU. Of course, everybody has access to CTSU if they're working on Energy CC005, but I'm sure everybody has their own issues with how CTSU organizes documents. I know we talk about it constantly at Energy Operations, but unfortunately we have no control over that. That is managed by the NCI. But our goal with the Forte Resource Portal was to create a website with Forte dedicated resources. Everything that is on there is available on CTSU, especially the CIRB approved materials, but it reorganizes each of these materials by topic. So, GI specific ones, research professional specific ones, CIRB approved materials that you can use with your patients. For example, the first section on it is the Forte Enrollment Guide, which was actually developed by Jody Gear at Metro, Minnesota, that kind of breaks down all of the necessary portals that you have to access to work on Energy CC005. I highly recommend you bookmark this page up here. Oops, sorry. The clinical trial /Energy CC005 /Forte Resource Portal, because it will take you directly to that portal, and you do need to use your CTSU login to access the portal. This is also updated monthly with any information that we develop over the past month. And also, if you missed any Forte Fridays, the Forte Fridays broadcasts are all linked there as well. And the other thing that is linked on the Forte Resource Portal is the contact us information, the contact information for Energy CC005. Of course, if you have any eligibility or clinical questions, you are always welcome to reach us at the Clinical Coordinating Department at forte@energyoncology.org. But if you have any specific questions that are a little bit different from eligibility or clinical questions, we have all of the contact information listed on the Forte Resource Portal, where you can directly work with the department that can help you. So this goes everywhere from data management to eligibility to vision tree, and of course sample collection. We really appreciate your time and your energy to talk to us about Forte today. So if you have any questions, we're opening the floor back up.
And we have some experts with us. Anna from Bay Pines VA. Jody's going to come back on to answer questions. And Mary Claire from VCU. So if you have questions about Forte and you want to get the coordinator's perspective, this is your time. Again, I'm going to encourage you to raise your hand, just so we don't have everybody talking at once. Isabella, there was a question about the visit window in the EDC. I think Amber answered it during her presentation, but I just want to make sure you don't have anything to add to it.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
That's right. Is there a visit window, and does the EDC give you the next follow-up due date after you enter follow-up data?
You mean the timeline? Yes. If it's timeline when the next one is due, it's listed. And from that date would be 30 days when it will be overdue. Does this answer the question?
Karen, does it answer your question? If not, please feel free to take yourself off chat or take yourself off mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's Karen from the Boston VA. So is the
Hello.
30-day window, is it plus or minus 30 days from when that follow-up is due?
Also, we are looking for the visit window, so this is not
Yes.
for the visit window. I do
But
not
is there
think
a visit?
there's, I don't think there's a specific visit window on this protocol. I think we discussed this before. So as close as possible to the visit date.
Yeah, we're going to want it done as close as you can to when it's due. And if there's going to be a big difference, I would encourage you to document why in the research chart.
Okay, and it, the EDC does pop up the next visit, follow-up visit due date after you complete one of the follow-ups. Okay,
Correct.
perfect, thanks.
So Vanessa's asking if there is a template on how to track patients that are already on study. Do we have anything, Isabella, like that?
I think this can be done. How many patients were enrolled by site on CTSU, I think, on the homepage.
Hey, this is Anna from Bay Pines. I can share, I made something, just in Excel that we use to track, when things are due, what arm the patient was randomized to. And you can play around with it and change it how you want. It's just something that I made for us to use at our site.
That would be great, Anna, if you could share that with us, Forte email address. We would definitely try to distribute that to everyone. And that is the type of information that we would get out on Forte Fridays. The suggestions that you guys give are very helpful. And so whatever sites create that we find useful for other sites, we try to compile it and distribute it this way.
Okay, there's a chat from Rachel about Energy is working on a national contract for mobile blood draw that sites can use. Would the individual site pay for this if they use these services? Yes, but it's going to come out of the per patient blood payment. So I think it's $150 you get per blood specimen per patient. It's going to come out of that. I think that should help answer your question, Rachel. And I don't want to get into any specifics as far as what the actual numbers are yet, because just in case anything changes, it's not signed, sealed, and delivered, as the saying goes. Okay, let me.
There are a couple of questions about PCPs. So are there any sites that have involved primary care providers or primary care clinics in recruitment? And if so, could you elaborate on how you get them involved on recruitment?
Nobody's working with PCPs.
We don't have any. Oh, sorry. We don't have any PCP specific materials developed right now because we are focused on working with GI clinics. But if you go to the Forte Resource Portal and look at the I believe it's either the Forte resources for GIs or Forte resources for medical professionals. A lot of the materials there could be used in discussing Forte with any physicians. We've got a couple of letters developed to introduce the study to the physician, and of course, if they are interested in referring patients to Forte, we will not turn them down.
So Stephanie asked, if there's not a Forte specific visit window, does Energy have specific visit time point window standards we should be aware of? Stephanie, what I'm going to say to that is, because this is a prevention trial and not one of our treatment trials, it wouldn't apply. Thanks. You're welcome. So Jennifer is asking, if a patient completes the dietary questionnaire at baseline, would you still need another dietary questionnaire if that person sends a stool within a few days or a week? Hi, Isabella, do you know? Go ahead.
These are two different form sets. One can be done in the, let's say, vision tree, and the other one is completed by participant and sent, mailed with the stool sample. So I want to say not really, but I think it depends too sometimes.
Right. If you, Jennifer, if you have an actual situation, just shoot an email to the forte@energyoncology.org email and we can answer it. Keep the questions coming. We're ready.
I'll ask one. So, from the VA's perspective, sites can utilize Vision Tree because it adheres to our security standards. But I don't think any VA sites are utilizing Vision Tree. So it would be nice to hear what the experience is with using that from other maybe non-VA sites so that we can think about implementing that more within VA.
Jody or Laura, are you guys using Vision Tree?
This is Jody. Yes, I am. And I love using Vision Tree. It's a lot less work on my end when they're using Vision Tree because once that data is in there, it's in there, and you don't have 4 answers for one question because it doesn't allow it. You're not having to keep track of a source doc. I highly recommend that you do it on a coordinator's side of it. It's nice. It's really nice. I would recommend doing it.
Yeah, and I imagine the data quality is much better, as you alluded to there. And then the reduction in coordinator workload and tracking, like you mentioned as well, is really key. And I'd like VA sites to think about utilizing Vision Tree. So how do you do that? So you're sitting with the patient. How do you move forward? Like, what does that look like? Just to give us an idea for those that aren't using it.
Well, I work remotely, so I actually send them a copy of the email from Vision Tree because I had patients say to me they didn't fill out the questionnaires because it came from Vision Tree Optimal Care and they thought it was an eye care place. So, and just for more convenience, when I sign them up in Vision Tree, I copy and paste that email directly into my email that has the password and everything they need and the link so they can just jump from my email right to that questionnaire. I know, I don't remember who I was talking to from VA side of it. If they could do it, I would suggest that if you're consenting in person, do it all at that time, get them consented, go get them registered real quick, get the blood draw and set them up in an exam room and let them just do it right then and there. And then the other nice thing is they can also do it from their phone if they don't want to, if they're just sitting there, you don't have computer access for them.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful insight. I appreciate that.
Rachel, did you have something you wanted to add to the conversation? I know you've been typing in the chat, but I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to mention. Rachel had said if they have someone who does not want to use Vision Tree, they would mail the participant a hard copy of the questionnaires to their address and mail it, and patient would mail it back, and then they enter the data into RAVE.
I popped a couple of comments in the chat, but for the purpose of the recording, we have a Forte Vision Tree manual that kind of addresses kind of Forte specific conversations and questions on CTSU and the Forte resource portal. This addresses kind of what Jody was mentioning, that the honestly, the Vision Tree email kind of looks like spam. So it gives you some guidelines on how to have the patient prepared to receive it and check their spam folder or recognize the correct links. So that's one very helpful resource. And additionally, NRG Oncology also hosts Vision Tree trainings quite regularly. I think it's on a monthly basis, and you can register for them. They are very helpful in terms of getting started with Vision Tree and understanding what it looks like from the site level, but also from the patient level, so you can work with your patients that way.
And Mary Claire from VCU said they've done it both ways depending on what the patient prefers, but she feels that Vision Tree is ideal.
Vision Tree is the ideal, as I think Jody mentioned. It's from the coordinator standpoint, the data comes in, the information comes in electronically, but not all. I've had one patient that didn't want anything to do with it, so we just did the paper trail and we entered the information. It's not a problem. It's just one more step and something you got to keep track of and make sure that you enter it into their chart.
Thank you. Other questions about the FORTE trial? We have experts on the call who are willing to speak up about how they're doing at their sites. We can answer from the operations perspective. Isabella's ready to answer data management questions. Well, I will say, we have the FORTE email address, forte@energyoncology.org. Please feel free to email questions to that. Cheryl has access to it. I have access to it. Martha and Mary Pat, the CCD, have access to it. There's the four of us. We will answer your questions. Even if you think, I don't know who to ask this question to, send it to the email. If we don't know the answer, we will, if we're not the right person, we're going to get you to the right person. Seems like everybody's quiet. Go ahead, Cheryl. You were going to say something.
Oh, we just got another question. Has anyone tried emailing the questionnaires instead? To clarify, Vision Tree is conducted through email. What happens is you enter the patient information, or the patient, once they are randomized, they get the questionnaires through their email, the email address that you have on record. Don't know if anyone has emailed the copies of the questionnaires instead. I was just going to add that we also have regular FORTE site calls quite regularly, and we'd like to have everyone working on FORTE on them so that we can talk about the different issues and questions that come up and ways to improve study conduct. So keep an eye out on your email box once you're signed up for FORTE Fridays for those invites. The next one will be in mid-September, and we will be talking stool collection, everyone's favorite topic.
I can't tell you how many emails I get about stool collection and it being different than it should be. They are all over the place. That's all I can say. But the site calls are really great because when you all are on the call and you start sharing ideas, that's where we get ideas and we learn what we can do on our end to help to make this easier, work smoother for you. So we love it when you're on there. We love it when you're talking and sharing ideas. That is great. Any other questions for us?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Hello. You
Hi.
just activated, didn't you?
Yeah, just last week
I
on
saw
Friday.
your email. Oh, I did see your email. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I apologize if you already covered this. We might have just missed it earlier, but if we have a patient that was randomized to 5 and 10 years, but say they had a colonoscopy unscheduled and it's at it's coming up on 5 years, but not quite 5 years, how do we deal with that? Because I'd imagine we wouldn't schedule another colonoscopy that soon after, but if it's very close to that 5-year mark, how should we handle that?
There he is.
I'm
Go
going to
ahead,
answer
Rocky.
that. That's an excellent question. It's something we've been battling around, and we are going to provide some very specific information on what unscheduled colonoscopy is close enough to the 5 years such that you wouldn't have an expectation to bring the person back in 5 years. And it's probably going to be something like within 3 years. It's something that we've talked about, and we will provide specific guidance. So in the scenario you described, let's say, all the 5 year and the 10 year is plus or minus 1 year. So if it was after 4 years, then it clearly counts as being as the part of the 5 year expected exam. Let's say it was at 3 years, then it becomes a question. Is it just an unscheduled early? Do we still try to bring them back at the 5 year? And that's something we're going to provide guidance on.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I see we're right at time, so I just want to thank, Kristen, Cheryl, Isabella, all of you for supporting the coordinators so much. I just feel like your support has really made a difference in providing all of the education, and all of the different ways to access information has been really great. So I'm sure it's a lot of work, but it shows. And so I just wanted to say we should certainly appreciate it. Coordinators are often overlooked, and they are really the engines of these trials, boots on the ground, to make this work. So thanks.
Agreed. The coordinators do a lot, especially in these prevention trials. You guys are amazing. With that, I'm going to thank our presenters for taking the time to present today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to the attendees for taking the time to hop on today. I hope you found the information valuable. The slides are going to be posted, so you will have them to refer to. And please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. We want to make the trial successful. We want you to be successful with the trial. Please reach out. We are here to help you with the study. Have a good rest of your day, everybody, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.